Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Uhen, business strategist with Dentist Advisors, and I'm back again with part 2 of our productivity points. And I'm going to add in a third one too. We're going to do both points 2 and 3, diagnostics and case acceptance. Stay tuned.
Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm happy to be here again. This is Christine Uhen, the business strategist with Dentist Advisors. And we're moving on in our series of education that we're calling the 5 points of productivity. Last time we talked a little bit more in detail about the patient base and how at different points in the business, it's important to pay attention to different numbers of how many patients and annual patient value, things like that. We're moving on today to points number 2 and 3. We're going to do these together. Diagnostics and case acceptance are very intertwined. How much should you have in terms of each statistic? What's good? What's bad? There's so many different pieces of information. You've probably read articles that said if you're not at 90% case acceptance, something's going wrong in your business. So we're going to break down some of this data and hopefully get some clarity for you. So the truth is, diagnostics is ultimately the responsibility of the dentist. Official diagnostics. You're going to have some team members share their concern or push back with you a little bit about, I can't diagnose, I'm not a dentist. And they're right. They can't officially say what's good or bad or going right or wrong in somebody's mouth. But what they can do is help patients understand what's really going on in their mouth. So the co-diagnostic piece of getting patients to understand what's going on is real and a fair expectation to have that you would ask your team to help you with this. Whether that's taking x-rays, taking images, taking scans, anything that educationally will help patients understand what's going on in their mouth. So co-diagnostics with your clinical team is a great advantage to have, that they're aligned with you in terms of what you see and what you would treatment plan. But that also means that you need to spend the time with your team to elevate their understanding and to get in alignment with you. So case reviews with them, sharing your philosophy of care, sharing your clinical standards of care. When I see X, this is what I recommend would be the treatment plan. And not that they have to tell the patients that, but you need to give your team the clarity and the confidence to be there with you and discuss it with your patients. So co-diagnostics is a real thing. Now, how much should you diagnose? So here's some interesting information. You want to have enough diagnostics that, number one, it's accurate. You want to tell patients everything that's going on in their mouth. And truly, the more you know, the more you see in terms of your own clinical education. But really, wouldn't it be great if you could tell the patients everything that's going on in their mouth as you see it today? So let's focus on the comprehensive exam in this situation today. If a new patient's coming into your office, and they are coming in as a new patient, non-emergency based. So whether they haven't been in for 6 months because they've just moved here from an area or they haven't been here in years, I think it's a great idea to say, with your permission, Christine, I'd like to tell you everything that I see in your mouth and give you to the best of my ability, a treatment plan for the next 2 to 5 years in your mouth. We really want you to know everything that's going on in your mouth. And we also want you to not be surprised at things that you see that I see that potentially could happen in the next 2 to 3 years or so. So asking permission to tell them everything that's going on in their mouth, how many people wouldn't want that? And if they do, then it's limited. Then you know to narrow your focus on 1 or 2 things that they have questions about. But offering them to give them the best and finest assessment and diagnostic that you can, that's fantastic. So comprehensively treatment planning everything that you see, it doesn't matter how much it is, it means you're doing the right thing for the patients, right? Now, it really does matter because you do have goals, and that's the first thing that you need to be aware of. So let's take the diagnostics into the next part of that is, what are you comparing it against? What is a good diagnostic number? Well, what is it that you want to produce, right? The truth is, if you had someone say to you, or you read in an article, you need 90% case acceptance of what you diagnose to be successful? Well, let's put some numbers to that. What if your goal, we're just going to use round numbers, is $100,000 of production for you for the month, and you treatment planned $100,000. You diagnosed $100,000. At 90% case acceptance, that's $90,000. That sounds fantastic, but not so when your goal is 100, right? So really thinking about, do I diagnose enough dentistry to even make my goal? That's the first baseline information. If I know my goal is whatever, 50,000, am I diagnosing enough to get that enough patients will say yes so that I meet my goal? So the first number that's important to know is your goal. The second thing to remember is not every patient is going to say yes today. And ask your administrative team. There's a million reasons, 101 reasons that they don't schedule the day of. I need to check my schedule. I need to check with my spouse. I need to check my financials, all sorts of reasons. And they're valid. They're being good consumers to not schedule today. But if not everybody schedules yes today, then you need to diagnose more than what your actual goal is. Expecting 9 out of 10 people to say yes to what you're recommending is a lot of pressure on you, right? And again, think about, what if 1 out of 2 patients said yes? Well, then I need to diagnose twice my goal. Well, what if 1 out of 3 patients said yes? Then I need to diagnose 3 times my goal. So let's start with this. So we're still talking just about diagnostics. We'll get to case acceptance in a moment. But truly thinking about that. And if you're comprehensively treatment planning what needs to be done as well as what could be done, your diagnostics will instantly go up. But this is also implying the need to track this information. This is not something you should measure by your thoughts or your heart or I think or I feel or my experience has been. Don't do that on emotion. These are data points. So get the data. If you're using any kind of dashboard, Dental Intel, Jarvis, Practice by Numbers, Add It, any of those, that is all tracked on your dashboard. If you're not doing that, you can run reports at the end of the day, treatment plan. What was actually scheduled off that treatment plan? You can run that daily, weekly, monthly. You can get a handle for a couple of months, track that data if you're not already. So you have a measuring stick. You know where you're at. Is it solving the business needs? Am I getting enough dentistry on the book to meet my production goals? And if not, what needs to change? And those are 2 levers that can change. The first one being diagnostics. The second one being case acceptance. So this, again, is an important data because what needs to get accepted needs to meet your goal. So there's where those 2 data points align. Knowing your goal, that's what you need to get accepted. Once you know your acceptance rate, then you can start changing that diagnostic goal. Again, if you know you've got historical data that you're at 50% case acceptance, you know your target of diagnostics. If it's 30%, then you know your target diagnostics. What if you're at 70%? That's, again, wonderful. I only need to diagnose 1.5 times what it is that I need to do for case acceptance to get the productivity. Ultimately, the number one goal here is to get your patients the treatment they need, right? So, but increasing your case acceptance as a dollar value or a percentage, neither one of them, it doesn't matter how you track that. I actually prefer the dollar value because that is a comparative number that's pretty easy to get to. You know your production goal, you can get your acceptance goal to a dollar number. So start with that. Then understanding that, how do I increase this case acceptance? One of the most important things that you can do is to make sure the patients obviously know that you care. This is a very, we're AI driven, we're technology driven, we've got tools to help us do that, but it's also heart driven. You need to let the patients know that you care about them. And one of the really, get to know them, do the relationship building, do the rapport building, get to know something about them, and really as a person. So family, what they do for fun, what kind of work they do, all of those bits of information are important to have that and to have that dialogue and conversation with your patients. The next key point to know is, why are they here? What are your patients looking for? Why are they seeking dental care? And it generally comes down to one of three things. They want their teeth to look good. They want to have a big, beautiful smile. They might want their teeth to work good. They want to be able to chew and function. My parents had dentures and they could hardly eat anything. Or they might want to be healthy, right? They want their teeth to feel good. This is the I want to be out of pain, but they're really seeking health. So you can narrow that down. What patients are looking for is one of three things. They're looking for aesthetics, function, or health. Well, when you find out what is most important to the patient, this becomes your messaging as to why they should get this work done. Yes, we know clinically why it needs to get done, but patients are not comfortable in our dental language. Most of them are not engineers and want to know the details of the tensile strength of titanium, all those things that are important to us. What they want to know is why. What's in it for them? So presenting the treatment in a way that is results-oriented, gives them what they said they wanted, is a fantastic way to help patients say yes to more treatment. And doctors, I'm going to be real honest with you. Case acceptance happens at the chair. That doesn't happen at the front desk. Front desk, the administrative team, their responsibility are the next 2 points of productivity. But case acceptance happens here. It happens with you. So you need to wrap up this conversation with a closing line as you're presenting the treatment. You're giving them an estimate of cost. Yep, I'm asking you to do that. Giving them an idea of the total treatment plan. Estimate high. So if you can see on the treatment plan, your team has entered the treatment plan in the chart, you can see that the total at the bottom is $8,900. If you actually said to the patient, Mrs. Jones, with everything we've seen today, getting you healthy like you want to be will be about $10,000. When you take that hit, you do that estimate, you give that big picture cost to the patients, and you're the one that they go, what? To? That's going to set your team up administratively for the next 2 key points of productivity, which are helping patients finance the work that they need to have done and getting it scheduled on the book. So this is a tough one, I know it, but case acceptance happens at the chair. And you being the one to help patients get a rough idea of cost, let the team manage that in the details. But when you take that hit of that, what I call sticker shock, even if it's $1,000, they're going to say, what? Just expect it. You'll be great with this. And then setting your team up for success for the next 2 key points there. So that's today. Points 2 and 3, bonus round here today with diagnostics and case acceptance. Getting enough diagnosed and said yes to meet your production goals. Thanks again. Tune in next time.